Hi, my name is Connor McElroy. I'm a visual communications design major, and I believe that violent video games can create real-time stress in people's lives today.
Hey, my name is Dylan. I'm a senior at Eastern. I'm a communications major with a public relations minor. We're doing this video based on my paper, Minds of a Nation, which targets the violence in video games today. My personal stance on the question is that I do believe that overall violence can affect the user over time, but there are situations that video games can be a positive influence. Video games have grown in size since they were first created. These games allow people to have an outlet of fun and often becomes a normal hobby. There are lots of different types of video games ranging from adventure to sports games. Video games can often be a positive activity for people with several benefits, but there is a growing problem in the gaming world. Violent video games have started to take over the industry. The level of violence in these video games has gotten out of hand, and the users often don't know the effects that they have on them. Playing these games over time can create long-term issues, and the public need to know.
Most people would agree that the history of violent video games starts with one game, and that is Doom. It was created in the early 90s and is known as being one of the first and most famous first-person shooters. When the game was created, it stirred up a lot of controversy. After watching the gameplay, it is much less violent than any game you would see today, but at that time it was released, there was nothing like it. People became very worried about the effects of a game like this that it might have on the rest of the population.
These violent games can be so dangerous because they sway the reality of life and death to the gamer. In the games, you often run around trying to kill as many people as you can before the end of the match. This lowers the emotion to death because it becomes a part of everyday life. It also takes away the concern about death since you can die but respawn within 10 seconds. It also shows the gamer that there are no repercussions of your actions.
A major problem people have with these games is the effect that they have on young users. A child's mind can be influenced very often, and being exposed to these kind of materials can be very detrimental at a young age. Here's an example of a violent reaction to a violent video game.
Winning streak, and it's 0-2. Can you hear me? You guys suck eggs.
But the effect that a violent video game has on a normal college-aged male, those are the subjects of a lot of these studies, or adolescent, may not be the same when it comes to people who have serious mental problems.
No, you might absolutely be correct. The problem is we just don't know yet, that the research really is not there. It's irresponsible for researchers in my field to take research done on, as you said, normal adolescent males and so forth, and then try to generalize those findings to these actual horrific acts that we're kind of essentially going beyond the data that we've collected in our laboratory when we try to predict it. So you might be right, but I mean, I would guess that the bigger cause of these types of situations are the shooter. I mean, it's already the news reports coming out that he probably was paranoid, schizophrenic, and so forth. And looking for whether or not video games contribute to that really seems to be looking at perhaps the smallest effect here, if any.
Is there any evidence that playing these violent video games in which you are playing some sort of a role and shooting a fake gun, etc., has more of an effect in causing aggression, whether it's aggressive thoughts or aggressive acts, than, say, watching a very bloody and violent movie?
No, there are theoretical reasons why violent video games should have a bigger effect than violent television or movies, but empirically there's absolutely no difference. In fact, when we look at meta-analyses, which are big studies done on all the studies done in these areas, what we actually find is the average effect of video games is actually lower than the average effect of movies and television and so forth. And so, at the very least, it's unfair to say that violent video games have a bigger effect on an individual than other violent media.
Although there has not been a direct connection between violent video games and real-life violent acts, I do believe that video games have the ability to change a person's emotions.